Man, this kaiju just won't go down. Think we have to bust out the trusty chainsaw for this one. Wa-ching! Alright, let's do it. Here comes, Pain? Dude, you okay? You seem like you're having trouble. He was a little tough, but thanks for the help. More importantly, though, where the hell did you get a gun? Well, that's a silly question. How else would you fight a kaiju? Pentecost, we need to have a conversation. Hey, man, just welcome to Super Important Views. My name's Steven. Thank you guys for 3,000 subscribers. Count them. 3,000 subscribers, which is actually pretty crazy because we just did the 2,000 subscriber just a couple of months ago. So we're actually booking pretty well, and hopefully around G-Fest be maybe around 4,000. Might be being a little too optimistic, but it'd be freaking awesome. So as a thank you to you guys and not being able to put out the Kyoto Evangelions like you guys have been requesting, decided to just order some new Evangelions so I could do some actual comparisons because I don't really have too many Evangelion figures. So got a pretty good deal on a used lot of Solo Chogokin Evangelions, which what we have here is the Solo Chogokin GX-14 Evangelion 01 test type, which these are Bandai action figures and almost primarily die cast for these figures other than the accessories, which I'll go over when we do the review. But wanted to pick up some new Evangelions because possibly maybe want to do some stop motion with these guys and Geek Chest sometime in the future. Plus it helps for the fact that I didn't really pay a whole lot for the 3 that I got with this one, Unit 0 and Unit 2. So without further ado, for the packaging, have a nice image of the figure inside. The packaging striking a pretty good pose. Really love the image of the Unit 1 face here. Got the Solo Chogokin GX-14, some stuff I can't understand. Top of the packaging, just him holding on to the pellet rifle with some more Evangelion. On the side, at least get a little bit of the nerve symbol on there and with more of the purple hue like we'd see on the Evangelion. Nothing too much different on the other side. Back of the packaging just shows you everything that this guy comes with his entry plug, handgun, pellet rifle, bazooka, and all the other stuff that he can do in accessories, and some stuff I can't understand, some legal mumbo jumbo, and some more Evangelion on the bottom. So let's get this guy opened up out of his cardboard prison. Alright, so now that we have Unit 1 open up out of his cardboard prison, first gonna go over his accessories. But just want to point out beforehand is on this entire figure, he's actually primarily die-cast with almost the entirety of his legs being die-cast, and his arms and the little front breastplate here, with his abdomen region, chest, and head being actually made out of plastic, same with the hands. Which is something I wasn't expecting out of this figure, because this figure actually weighs a ton. Though I also start noticing that, I did get this guy used, so I am expecting to maybe see some loose joints, but with all this die cast, it seems like the hip joints are actually pretty loose on this guy, which I can see that being detrimental to the figure, but we'll go over that in just a few. But to go over some of his accessories. So for starters, he comes with an instruction booklet, which pretty much what this is it pretty much tells you a little bit of assuming a story about the director in that little section there. Not too 100% sure what's going on. But it pretty much shows you all the accessories that come inside the packaging, what you could do with them, his little gimmicks like the shoulder missiles, which we will go over, same with his roar. It also comes with a checklist and essentially tells you how to assemble the figures and some of the other figures in the line. And not too much going on in here in the back. But what's really cool is it comes with a checklist, so when getting these figures used, if it came with this anyways, but it'll tell you exactly what it's supposed to come with and gives you a general idea of how everything's going to work. Next, he comes with this super fancy display stand, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get the Chogokin version, because I really love this whole display where it's supposed to replicate the holding port for the docking bay for this guy, where this is actually supposed to hook into his shoulder. And I thought it was really cool. And also you could attach some of the accessories onto it, like the entry plugs. If you have the bomb, you can sit it there. And even has some little side ports for added carry and stuff that some of the figures actually have. But it's still really cool that the stand can pretty much hold most of the stuff. The big issue I have with the stand is when I got the Big O stand, it's made of plastic. Didn't really bother me. But it actually felt fairly thick and seemed worth it because it's an expensive figure, so you want a nice looking stand to go with it. Which this looks pretty nice overall, but you'll notice that this top section's already started to wiggle. And these sections here are really, really thin plastic, especially this part right here on the back. So that's actually very, very scary. And I say scary because I'm actually holding my Unit 0 stand, which came fully assembled. Because there is some assembly required. You actually have to attach this top parts, this little back section here, and then this hooks into the stand. What happened when I tried to assemble my Unit 1? Stand snapped when I was trying to enclose these on the top of here and literally just broke off the top. didn't really require much force, which is a huge bummer for this. Because with this guy, feeling super solid, has a lot of weight to it, feels very pricey, very worth the cost at the moment. The stand, on the other hand, doesn't give me that same feeling. But to show you guys a little bit of the details, you get the nice Evangelion Soul Chogokin logo on the front here in the same color scheme our Unit 1's in. Get some footprints on the bottom where you know to sit your Ava. Some ports here for energy plugs. You can put the cable on the back here. And then what's the stand's supposed to do, which I thought was actually pretty cool. Alright, so I had to attach the shoulder pads just to show you guys what's supposed to be going on here. But what you're going to do is you take Unit 1, you're going to want to put his feet into the little spots right here, which don't really secure him in there at all, but it just kind of gives you an area where you're supposed to be setting him in. You want to have him standing as straight up as possible. Then you just kind of just lean him into the brackets right here to hold his shoulder pads in. And it just takes a lot of finessing, plus you got to fit his arms in there as well, because the arms slot into right here. Then coming around to the other side, try to get him into that one, but I just popped him out of the other side. Be right back. This is about the best I'm going to get it, but it's supposed to replicate him actually being hooked into the docking bay, which I think it does a pretty decent job, even though it doesn't really hold him in there. It's just kind of, he just leans into the back of it and you call it a day, which I wish there was some way of latching him into there. I think that would have been really cool, especially with this guy being a very heavy figure and with the top arm being plastic, and we'll go over the part I kind of worry about in a second. It'd be nice if you actually stayed in there a little bit more securely, because I still feel like he could tip out of this eventually. And what's kind of neat too is that you can actually slide these parts up so that it looks like he's popping out of it, just like he would in the TV show, which I think is really neat. But again, I think it could have been executed a little bit better. So for the most part, it's really cool, but super depressing at the same time, because it's one of the major selling points I feel for the Chogokins over, say, the Damashi or the Revolt Tech, and it just fails in my opinion. And then for Unit 1, you get 2 sets of shoulder pads, which one shoulder pads are just primarily just a clean look. They have no gimmicks, nothing going on with them. And how you slot them on is actually kind of neat. Is what you do is you just bring it over to the shoulder, you bend it in just a little bit, and it actually slots right into that groove up there. So it's really easy to actually get these things on. It's not a pain in the butt to swap these things out. The other cool thing about the shoulder pads too is they're actually magnetized in here. So this little metal clamp right here actually pretty much locks right in. You can see it's already trying to move it in on itself, which I'll just let it go. Already starts shifting, bam, goes right in. Which I think is actually really cool, because it kind of helps these things to stay in a little bit better than just using a clamp, which, especially with these things being very thin feeling plastic, I imagine if it was trying to actually hook in there the standard way, you actually would probably cause a lot more breakage than anything. So I'm really glad that they went with this. But the shoulder pads are made out of plastic, so it kind of contrasts with the arm pads here, which are all die cast for these sections here. But the paint job is actually really nice on it, with the metallic green here for the front section and the top clip that kind of keeps the shoulder pads together. And then it's just black plastic for the majority of the rest of it, with some metallic purple for the back plate here. And then he comes with a pair of shoulder pads that actually have a gimmick to them, which for this one, you lift up the flap on the top here, and it reveals a spot that actually put his blade inside, so that you can actually kind of replicate the scene where he's pulling the blade out of his shoulder pad, which I'm not sure if you can actually pull it off on this figure. I actually tossed the blade in there just to see if you can actually reach around to it, but it's not going to work. So you can actually get him to pose where it looks like he's grabbing towards it, which he does come with an extra set of hands, which I'll show you guys in a few. But it would have been cool if he maybe could have reached around to actually grab this. But what is kind of neat too is you can actually lift this section up to actually hide the knife inside of here. So when you close it over top, the blade actually hides inside of it, which is actually pretty sweet. And then for the other side, you can actually pop open the plate right here, which what you're going to want to do is you'll see this little section right here. You're just going to take your nail and just kind of pry it open, which might be a little bit of a pain to do since I haven't really done it with this one yet. And what it reveals is a needle launcher, which you never see Unit 1 actually perform. You see Unit 2 actually use them in the Evangelion film. It's the only time you ever see it, but it is cool that it actually comes with it, because you imagine each of the Evangelions kind of being reminiscent of each other with the weapons and the shoulder, where each of them, this part actually lifts up to reveal knives. So you imagine the other side would have the same kind of weaponry throughout each of the Evas. And because I showed to you guys, we got the progressive knife, which has some very nice metallic silver, a little bit of red, some molded detail for the handles. Overall, pretty nice knife for the guy. Next, he comes with actually 2 pairs of his front horns for his helmet, which I think is actually really cool because, especially with this guy being super heavy, mostly being metal, you can expect that if he falls, he might break one of these. So it's really cool that they thought to actually include a second one, just in case if something bad happens, you have a backup. And how you insert this in Unit 1 is you'll notice that I have the lip portion where the plastic kind of sticks out just a little bit towards the top part of the horn. You're going to want to insert that into the slot right here on the front of his nose. And you just be a little bit careful because it is fairly thin plastic. And you just kind of wiggle it in there. But once you get it in, now you have Unit 1 in his full-fledged appearance with his ginormous awesome horn. Again, love the inclusion of a second one just in case this guy nosedives off your shelf. You have a backup. Then next you get his handgun, which is pretty standard fare, made of just normal gray metallic plastic, which overall looks really nice, has a decent amount of molded detail, but no little gimmicks, nothing, just a normal looking pistol. Next he comes with a gigantic bazooka, which has the same kind of molded plastic that we've seen for the pistol, but has metallic paint here for the barrel, which actually looks really nice. You can even see the inside of the barrel in the front section. The back has the exhaust like blow off section. Overall detail work on this is actually really nice, even though I don't really recall Unit 1 ever using this thing, but still cool he came with it. And he has his pellet rifle, which same kind of plastic going on here like we saw with the other 2 weapons. But the detail work on it is very nice, very reminiscent of the anime, with some metallic silver here for the barrel tip, or what you would call the muzzle brake. Then for the pellet rifle, he actually comes with a briefcase that actually hold the weapon on the inside, which what you do, you just kind of pop it open, has 2 little latches, one right there, one here. Just going to pop that open. You open it up, reveal some more detail work here for the, kind of like, I guess you would call this the padding for the pellet rifle, which kind of tells you how you're going to want to set the pellet rifle on the inside. So you just line it up with the detailing. Then you just kind of work it in there a little bit. Close the weapon on the inside. Now you got some storage for the pellet rifle. Now what's kind of cool too is you can take the briefcase and actually attach it to his shoulder pad. Which you'll notice right here, there's some little pegs sticking out the bottom of the briefcase here. You're going to line them up with the notches right here. You pretty much just push it on there. Nothing too crazy. And now your Unit 1 is ready for combat. Kind of reminds me of Desperado in a sense, but overall I think it's actually kind of cool. Then speaking of said notches, you get 2 little black ones, which you're going to want to attach these into the same spot that we had the briefcase, which actually I'm just going to pop out the shoulder because it makes my life a little easier. And then you just take the notches and maybe make my life easier. All right, got them in. You get 2 little handles here, which are varying sizes, which there's going to be a larger one that goes towards the top. The smaller one's going to hook onto the bottom. And what this is used for is these 2 sheaths, which what these are for is for his counter sword and his, I'm probably going to butcher it, but his Mogoroku sword. Which, overall, the detail work on the sheaths are actually very nice, which translate a lot of the same details that we see on Unit 1 with the metallic purple and some green here for the bottom guard of the tip. And then the same thing for the counter sword, but you actually get a little bit of orange here, which is supposed to replicate the guard for the Mogoroku. Which for the sheaths, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that the orange section is facing downwards. And then you have 2 pegs here, which are going to be varying sizes because the pegs on the shoulder pad are actually varying sizes as well. So you kind of just line it up, and you just insert them into the peg holes, which a little scared right now. Alright, got that one in. A little bit terrifying, but nothing too crazy. Just be careful when applying pressure because these might try to wiggle out, so you don't want to snap the pegs when trying to insert these. Because again, these kind of feel like the same type of plastic that they used on the display stand, so it is a little bit terrifying. And then grabbing the other one, which this one does not have any orange on it, but it will in a second. So you're just going to want to make sure that the opening is going to be facing towards the bottom. And you just kind of do the same thing that we did on the other side. Which the bottom peg here is being a little bit of a pain in the butt. And again, I'm still kind of scared to insert that in there. Then inserting these in this sheath, you're going to want to take the Mogoroku sword. You want to insert it into the longer one, which is slides right in. You'll feel it latch in. Then you bring the guard up from the handle, to enclose over top of the sheath. And then for the counter sword, you're going to want to slide into the sheath as well, but you want to be a little bit careful with the barrel here, because if you have it a little too high up, it's not going to want to go in, so you don't want to apply pressure and snap the thing. So you want to line it up underneath these little pegs, if you guys can see it right there. And that's going to latch into where the, what I'm going to call the scope right there, hooks into the top section. And actually stays in there very nice, even though I got the one peg in there. Still working really well. And then just show you guys with it on Unit 1. Looks pretty cool on them overall, I gotta say. Really helps to kind of make them look a little bit more fearsome and very imposing and huge. Like, you can even add the briefcase to the other shoulder pad on the other side here to give them even more accessories, which I guess we'll do right now. Now our Unit 1's fully loaded, ready for any combat situation. And I don't know why you'd ever want to display him with all these accessories on your shelf, but it's awesome that you have the option. And then for his hands, he comes with a pair of gripping hands for his weapons, which are actually really nicely sculpted. Have some metallic purple for the fingers and the palm, with some metallic silver for the knuckle guards. And overall, really impressed with the amount of detail that they have on these. And then he comes with a pair of open palms, which are primarily going to be used for holding on to your weapons, like say for the pellet rifle to hold it underneath the gun. Or if you're going to want them gripping onto enemies or in more roaring, fierce positions, these are the hands you're going to want to be using, which have the same amount of detail as we've seen on the trigger hands. But I personally really like these ones a little bit more, because how I'm going to probably have them displayed is him just roaring just like this on my shelf. So got to have these battle-ready combat hands for that situation. And then how you swap the hands out is what you're going to do is just like on any of the Robot Damashis or Monster Arts figures. You're going to want to grab at the base of the wrist, and then you can kind of grab wherever on the arm, because it doesn't really matter too much here because it's all die cast. So this isn't going to really give. If anything, that's one of the problems is with these being plastic right here and this being metal, is usually like there might be a little bit of give here or on the hand. It's only going to be on the joint here, so you got to be a little bit extra careful. But when you're going to be pulling out, you're just going to go straight out from the forearm. So you just pop it up, good to go. Grab your other hand you want to swap it out with, and you're just going to go straight into the forearm. Apply a little bit of pressure. Pops in there pretty easily. And overall, it's not something I'm really worried about the hands breaking, but it's just one thing to point out for his next accessory. His umbilical cord, which is the main power supply for the Evangelions, because without it, they can only run for, I believe it's about 3 minutes, if I remember off the top of my head correctly. Which, I'm glad it comes with the figure, because it actually has a lot of very nice details. It's something very iconic for the Evangelion, so definitely needs to come with this thing, so that's really cool. It has a really nice metallic silver paint job, a little bit of black there to help replicate the tubing here, which what this is just normal rubber tubing, so you can kind of bend it, twist it however you want. And then it also comes attached when you initially get it. Just be a little bit careful though when you're pulling it apart, because this part feels like it's really thin and the tubing's very tight. So you already get you guys' mind out of the gutter, but want to point out that it might break if you guys try to force it in or force it out too much. So just when you're pulling it out, just give it some time. I'm moving on now. And what's really cool too is this part's actually articulated, which I appreciate, because when attaching this to Unit 1, it goes right here inside of this peg hole here, right underneath the lever for the entry plug. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to insert this into the hole, but you're going to want to be very careful because this is a really tight fit. This is made out of metal. This is made out of plastic. So you have to worry about the peg snapping, which I actually had a problem with because I put it in a little bit too far. So when I wanted to pull it out, it was really tight and ended up breaking the inside part, which I actually did manage to fix. Can't even notice it now, which is really awesome. But just want to mention that to you guys so this doesn't happen to you if you guys decide to get this figure. So just make sure you just put it in just a little bit, just enough to where you kind of feel it stopping. Don't try to force it into the hole anymore to get a tight fit around the umbilical cord, because it's not really necessary. Plus what's cool is then if you don't have it in all the way, you can make use out of the articulation here. So you get a little bit more posability out of that, which is something that's really cool for this figure. I'll just show you guys, even though I'm not going to actually take it out of this thing because I don't really plan on using it. But what we have here is the holster for the bazooka, which this just goes into the side of the display stand. And the bazooka just drops right in there, so it gives you a little bit added storage if you wanted to display it with your stand. And then for the final accessory, you get his entry plugs, which you have to remove out of this little plastic clip, which you do get 3 of them, which for the details, overall, pretty nice for the guys. Just made out of this more cream colored plastic A little bit of red paint added to the tip here. And then what you can do with the entry plug is you can actually insert it like you could in the anime, which is something that's actually really sweet. And what you do is you just kind of grab towards the base of the plate back here. Might be a little bit of a pain to do, but you just bring it back. It rests back, reveals an opening right here that you can insert the entry plug. And you're going to want to have the red section here, which I got this thing backwards. You're going to want this facing down. And then you just insert this into the hole. Then you just line it up, push it down, and you'll hear it click as I pop off the shoulder pad. So now the entry plug stays in. You can close it over top. Good to go, just like in the anime. And if you want to remove it, what's actually really cool, and it's something that is kind of neat because you don't have to worry about trying to grip into there and trying to rip this thing out, is there's actually a little button right here underneath the plate. So you just push the button, and he just sends it flying. Alright, first time I did that, it did not launch out of there. It just kind of shot up just ever so slightly and we were good to go. So we're going to try that again, but I'm just going to keep my thumb right there. Nope, that little bugger just tends to shoot out. So, okay. So if you decide to actually put the entry plug in there, just be a little bit worried that you're just going to want to make sure you keep your hand by the plug so it doesn't go shooting across your room. What's actually cool, too, is if you guys have a hard time getting this little plate up, you can just push the button, and it pops it up for you pretty much, which is something I think is really neat. Then again, it also makes it a little bit hard to get the plug out of there. But I still love that you actually have the option of having the entry plug in it, and it really helps to add to this guy's playability. Then going for a closer look at Unit 1's details, the head sculpt on this guy is very impressive. Love all the molded details for the sculpt. Really helps to capture the anime. Also has some nice paint application with that metallic purple for the overall paint job that you see on the overarching figure. He also has some metallic gold painting for the eyes, metallic silver for his mouth. And what's cool too is the mouth's actually articulated. Though on this one, it's actually really, really loose, so I might have to apply some floor polish or some nail polish to get that a little bit tighter. But still really nice, still a lot of really good molded details on the inside of his mouth, even some red paint job on the lower section of the jaw. It looks awesome. Even like how they got the little neon green paint here on the strip of the horn. Looks awesome. Moving down to his neck, you get it looks sort of yellow, but it's more of an orange tint to the base of his neck. But the design's really nice. And then you get some metallic blue here for his breastplate. And then you guys can see the detailing for his lower section, where he has that giant old penis guard. I'm just going to call it that. I imagine it's just there to protect him just from getting kicked in the nuts by an angel or something. But because that seems kind of excessive. But whatever. He also has some metallic plating here on the front portion of his chest. Also just really like how they got the little rivet section here on the chest plate. Looks really nice, and again, something from the anime, so it's really cool to see it on the figure here. Shoulder pads overall look really nice, but we already went over that. But on his actual shoulder, you get the Unit 1 logo. Also on his forearms, you get the Ava Unit 1 test, so you know this is the actual test version. On the inside there, you get a little bit of an unsightly screw hole, but nothing too major. You're not going to really be noticing it a whole lot. But the arms do look really nice overall, where you have even the little extra plating here on the forearm, which is correct for the figure. With also a little bit of hints of muscles, which I always thought was something that was really cool about the Evangelions over, say, Gundams. Because even though these guys are technically armor-plated, they still look very human in character, which is really sweet, other than that section, but I guess that's supposed to help replicate his human-esque. Yeah. But for the legs, still look really nice. We have the giant metal piece here for his kneecaps, which is actually made out of plastic. So this part I'd actually be a little bit worried about, because these sections here are actually made out of die cast. But to my understanding, the joints here are actually made out of plastic. Same with this little section here. So that's something to be a little bit concerned about. Same with the joint right here is made out of plastic. His toe here is made out of plastic, but the rest of the foot's actually die cast, which is really cool. But before we go with the articulation, I'll show you guys the back section details real quick, which are really awesome too, where you even get some more molded detailing here for the back sections of his shoulders. And then on the back here too, where you have the section for the entry plug. And then right here is actually done in a metallic silver, which is really nice. More or less the same as what you get for the jaw right up here. And also a top-down view of Unit 1. But overall, detail-wise, this figure is actually fantastic. Like, I love him in terms of detail. Looks really awesome. Looks like he did in the anime for the most part. Other than the coloring, I guess you could argue is not quite anime correct with it being metallic purple. But then again, if this thing was actually real, I imagine they would add a little bit of finesse and give that paint job a little bit of a sparkle, if you know what I mean. But for his articulation, which is the part I have a little bit of a problem with this figure, because he actually has a decent amount of it. Like for his head, so I can look up, down, left and right. You also get a little bit of a joint here at the neck too, so he has a decent amount of posability with his head. Again, his jaw is articulated, so that does move up and down. For his shoulders, you can move them about that far outward, about that far inward. Can rotate all the way around. His elbow can also rotate all the way around. That is actually on a double joint though, so you can get the bend in really far. Straightens up really well. Also has a rotation here at the hand and a little bit of posability at the hand as well. And then for the shoulders right here too, they can actually, I'm just gonna get the shoulder pad out of here. Up at the shoulder pad here, you can actually rotate this section here too a little bit, so it gives you a little bit of added posability. And then for his waist, can move down about that far, move back about that far. Also has a pretty crazy rotation at his waist. Because of his articulation, he essentially has a joint here and here, so you get a pretty wide range of motion at his waist. For his legs, can move forward about that far, backwards about yay far. Also has a little bit of a swivel at the top section here, and both legs can move outwards about that far. At his knee, has a nice double joint, so it can bend in about that far, straighten about that far. No rotation though. And then his feet are on a ball joint, so you get a pretty wide range of motion there with a nice little pivot and some articulation here at the toes. Now, the only thing that kind of sucks, we're trying to get this guy to stand. He has a lot of metal, there's a lot of die-cast parts. And I already got this guy, when I got him, he was used. So when you're messing around with him, you can get him to articulate, you can get him to stand pretty well. But you have to worry about him, since he's pretty top-heavy, he likes to want to tip forward. So I recommend if you guys do get him, make sure you put him somewhere where he's not going to be messed around with too much, so you don't have to worry about him tipping. Because I would be super afraid of this snapping, and they do give you an extra one, but they only give you one extra one. So with him being prone to falling, that's something I'd be a little bit concerned about. Also, if you want to have him using some of the thinner weapons with some of the other Evangelions, like with Unit 0 with the Lance and Longulus, if he tipped over, I imagine that thing would also have problems, but we can go over that more if I do the other figures. Not sure if I'm going to do it yet. I'll let you guys comment down below if you really want me to do the other Evangelions, but this is the primary one we're doing for the 3000 sub. But with the die-cast, I noticed some of his joints are really, really loose now, and I imagine that's going to be a common problem with this guy because his joints are just really heavy, so they don't really want to stay in place. And it feels like there's some form of friction going on inside of the joint, but it's not really doing what it's supposed to, so I'm gonna have to fix that to get him to be able to stand a little bit better. But he still seems to be able to sometimes hold his pose. It just requires a lot of finessing with this guy, so just be a little bit worried about that when you get him. He might have some loose joint problems. And for some quick comparison, here we have the Soul Chogokin Evangelion Unit 1 compared next to some SH Monstars figures with Burning Godzilla and Larva Batra. And here's next to some NECA Pacificum Jaegers with the Ultimate Striker Eureka and Series 2 Battle Damage Gypsy Danger. And here's some more Soul Chogokin Evangelion figures of Unit 0 and Unit 2. Which again, if you guys want any reviews for these other two, let me know in the comment section below and I'll try to make it happen. And for our final comparison, here we have one with the Kyoto Evangelion Unit 1. Which, I know a ton of you guys have been requesting that guy, and again, sorry that hasn't gotten out yet. Just had a really hard time trying to get this guy reviewed because he's an old figure. He's kind of delicate, but he does come with a crap ton of accessories. Actually, more so than the Soul Chogokin. And for a little quick comparison between these two figures and which one I personally prefer more, I'd like this one because I would say in terms of scale and size and how everything works, I like him a little bit more as a representation of the Evangelion from the show. Then he just has some more fun gimmicks than what this guy had. But then again, for 30 bucks though, he works really well for me still. So if you guys are looking for a cheap Evangelion figure to pick up, I would actually say go with this guy because he's actually a fairly large action figure and he's much larger than what you get with the Revoltech versions. But the main reason you'd be wanting to get like a version like this, or say the Robot Spirits over this guy, is the molded detail, which For back when this figure came out, which I think was like 2000, as I got this guy when I was still in high school. This guy blew my mind. But now we get figures like this, where like the head sculpts, much better than Chogokin's. Shoulder pads, much better than the Chogokin. Body sculpt, much better than Chogokin. I still kind of like the arms on this guy, but his arms aren't articulated, so that's always been a bummer. The only real thing that I really noticed that the Kyoto version has over the Chogokin is he came with a lot more accessories. And a lot more, like, anime accurate, scene specific accessories. Like, he even comes with a Karu for him to hold so he can crush him. You know how awesome that is? But just like this guy, these are actually still fairly fragile figures, because especially even over time, like, I've had to reattach this quite a few times. I'm a Unit 0, I had to reattach the foot. And they just seem to have problems here and there. But then again, for about $30 and them still going for about a NECA action figure price, these things are still really awesome. Like, they even have, like, the entry plug on the back, and the detail work on these ones are still really nice, though. So, if you guys are looking for something cheap, like, say, over the normal $120 price tag that this guy is going over, this guy could be a good option for you. Especially, you find this guy on eBay pretty reasonably, too. There's a couple of different versions of the packaging. The one I had, he actually came in, it was more of an elaborate package and not just like the normal clamshell. So if you can find that one's actually really cool and the one I probably prefer. So in the end, for the Soul Chogokin Evangelion Unit 1 from Neon Genesis Evangelion, I think this figure is alright in the end. I really love the detail on the figure. I like that he has a crap ton of diecast on him, gives him a really nice mech feel, and he comes with a decent amount of accessories. Now, the only problem is the stand for him, in my opinion, is not very good, and I think could have been made a little bit more solid for the figure. So that's a bit of a fail for me. And with this guy being primarily diecast, he's very top heavy and he's kind of hard to pose, which kind of takes away from the guy being articulated as well as he is. So in the end, if you guys are really interested in a diecast Evangelion, then this figure will definitely do the job for you, but I would recommend trying to find him pretty reasonably cheap though. I got this guy for about $50, which doesn't seem bad at that price point. But with him generally going for about $120, that's pretty much the same price as the Robot Spirits version, which if you guys are really interested in Evangelion that's anime accurate and it comes with a crap ton of accessories as well, I probably would just recommend you guys going towards the Robot Spirits line. But what do you guys think? Do you guys own the Soul Chogokin Evangelion Unit 1? Does any of you own the Robot Damashi version? Because I would love to hear about that. Or is Gundam just more your thing? Please let us know in the comments. We'll look closer pictures of this guy on Facebook. You want to click the link in the description below. Help us defeat those kaijus by hitting that like button. Subscribe, become a ranger today, and see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.